Astrology 101, Week 4, Putting It All Together, created, directed, and produced by Rev Dr. Dickie Joe Mullen. In Week 4, Dr. Mullen discusses ways to read one's natal horoscope, introducing the aspects, elements, and qualities associated with the birth chart. The beginning of this video includes a brief discussion by participants as an introduction, and Dr. Mullen also has a question and answer period at the end of the video.
Love watching your videos and your classes. I wish I could do more of them.
Oh, thank you. Well, that means a lot because that's kind of my reason for being, I think.
I just want to thank you, Dickie Joe, for making these available to us in this way, and to tell you how amazing this class has been.
That's great. Oh, that warms my heart. Everybody's all welcome at all my events, and anything new coming up will be posted under, if you go to Sky Maiden Musings, and on the right-hand side, there's a little tab that says events. And some of them will be virtual, and some you'll have to come to Florida. Today is a really bad day for communication. Mercury is changing signs, and it'll be in Gemini, thank goodness, just before 11 p.m. tonight, Eastern time, but it's been moving over the evil fixed stars in Taurus all day. I want to talk to everybody about dirty data. Isn't that a great phrase? It's an astrology phrase. It's nothing X-rated. Dirty data is wrong information on a chart, and it's just devastating to work with a horoscope and find the data is wrong. When I work with my clients, it happens to all of us. All you can do is keep checking the data, ask questions, and if you do some dirty data, just redo it. You just have to redo the charts and chalk it up to experience. And that happened to me today. Some of you know that Marianne works at the Ocala breeders' sales with the big horse auctions, and their horse won the Derby because the horse was such an underdog. It's a very small horse, but Medina's Spirit, who's named after a holy city in Saudi Arabia. So I wanted Medina's Spirit's birth date, and Marianne accidentally gave me one day off, but she corrected it. So all the charts we'll be looking at are right. But I was sitting here myself watching the Kentucky Derby. So we do have the right chart for that. So on that cheerful note, we're going to look at some charts and do some different things. But first, I want to share the screen with something different. Now, let's see if we can do this. Share. And over here. Can everybody see this? Can you see these little things? Okay, these are slides, and this is a special presentation of all the free things I have up on the internet. All you have to do is put my name in. It comes up under Sky Maiden Musings, but also Reverend Dr. Dickie Joe Mullen YouTube, no spaces. And you can continue your astrology studies. This tape is all about Venus. This is about reincarnation, the 4 angles, the most important houses, 1, 4, 7, and 10, astrology of angels, sleep and dreams, and location. And then there's another series, how to get through difficult times, the Egyptian and Celtic zodiacs and the Chinese zodiac are all here. The earth signs of the zodiac, Horoscopes of Widowhood. That was one of my most popular articles and presentations about how if you lose a spouse and become a widow or widower, you do a chart for that, and it tells your life as a single individual, how to do a wedding chart. And this is the fixed stars in astrology. That's why the communication was so rough. There's a bunch of fixed stars in the Pleiades that Mercury, the planet of communication, was going over today. And we've had horrible communication here in Florida. The governor of Florida, for everyone who hasn't heard it, Governor DeSantis, suspended all mask mandates and opened up the whole state and didn't tell any of the local mayors. So they were all on the local news here in Orlando, the county mayor, the mayor of the city, and the health people having a holy fit because they had a whole sort of protocol. That's typical of what will happen under all the squares involving the planet Mercury. There's astrology and employment, the water and air signs, help for the lovelorn. That's a popular question. And here we have the celestial goddesses. They relate to esoteric astrology. You might enjoy that one, Michelle, because it's kind of your thing that you're doing in your good programs. You have astrology of vitamins and health secrets, cell salts, all of that you can do with health. And then the celestial dragon is the moon nodes. For those of you that want to work with the moon nodes or who want to go into Vedic astrology, they talk about Kaput and Kadua, the dragon's head and tail, and that's the moon nodes. So if you're interested in Vedic astrology, Mars, synodic cycles, the sun, the familiar birth sign, and celebrity horoscopes. If you want to learn to be a really good astrologer, there are accurate horoscopes for many celebrities you can get just by Googling their names. And an AA is accurate data. And A data is mostly accurate. C, maybe, maybe not. And then DD, dirty data, which is what I was involved with today. I got it from a source, but it turned out to be wrong. Those are categories. This is the horoscope of Elon Musk. I almost decided to do this tonight for you and then changed my mind because you can listen to it, of SpaceX, a brilliant life. He started out life as a real jerk. He was bullied in school, almost flunked out like Einstein, and now he's taking us to Mars. Don't you love it? It's all in the chart. So that's a good one to look at. Teachers around the zodiac, your alphabet letters and your name. 7 birth chart patterns. Everyone, when you first look at a chart and start to read it, we talked about the big 3, the sun, moon, and ascendant, but there are 7 different patterns the chart makes just looking at the layout of the chart. If you look at those, you can do a pretty good reading just working with those. And let's see, and there's also life experiences, eclipses and lunations. We have an eclipse coming up at the next full moon, and it's going to be a blood eclipse, and it'll be visible, it'll be red, and the old legends say blood can be shed under it, just what we all don't want to hear. And it is going to be at the next full moon. Let me give you the exact date. It will be on the 26th of May, and it will be exact at 7:14 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, the time zone for many of us. Here's Stephen Hawking. That's another interesting chart. And the big 3, this is the main video for all of you to begin with if you don't know where to start. Astrology's big 3, the sun, moon, and rising sign, and those 7 chart patterns will help you to know where to go next. And then declinations of the sun in the horoscope. We've been talking about the longitude when we talk about it. There's also another whole section in the ephemeris for the latitude, north and south. And if a planet is above the declination of the sun, it's said to be out of bounds. And that means all sorts of crazy things in the world. So if you see the abbreviation OOB in any astrological things you're reading, that's out of bounds. And this video will show you how to do that. That's sort of the next step beyond what we want to do here. Okay, let's bring everybody back. Hi again. It's good to see everyone because I can only just see a couple of you at a time when we're on the screen share. Something very interesting came from my colleague, Coleman Smith. He's an astrologer in Jacksonville. You can find his link on my Facebook page or just Coleman Smith Astrology. And he puts out a free newsletter called Zodiac News. And he really does a lovely calendar and unusual, interesting articles, all just for the love of astrology. And so if you want to request his newsletter, he's sending it to everyone. It's really worth getting. Zodiac News, Coleman Smith. And today on Facebook, he posted a really interesting little vignette. Some of you might have seen it. The ancient ship design, the bow of a ship with sailing ships, the slightly crooked beam on the mast aligns perfectly with the ecliptic plane. The plane of the ecliptic is the intersection between the moon's orbit and the plane of the ecliptic. It's essential for celestial navigation. And supposing that all the fancy navigation equipment goes down on a ship, any captain worth his stars knows how to do that. And the ones way back did. We're using astrology. The ecliptic plane is 23 degrees, 26 minutes from the equator. Your own hand has the thumb aligned. So astrology is everywhere to the ecliptic plane. And astrology has the scientific side to it. We're in tune with the solar system, the Milky Way, the galaxy, and more. I thought that was kind of neat because within ourselves, we can do celestial navigation. And with any boat or ship, I don't know about rowboats, out on the Indian River, but we can do that. And Mutiny on the Bounty was based on a true story. And as horrible as Captain Bligh was, he was a brilliant navigator. And he got back to England using just what we were talking about in like a sort of a rowboat. The mutineers stuffed him and his officers in and left them off to float at sea. And they were pretty shocked when they got back to England and he was there. I love it. It's all astrology. You just have to stay on top of things because we all have a lot that we can learn. Okay, now I'm going to try something really advanced. Keep your fingers crossed. I practiced this all day, switching from one of the screen shares, one of the PowerPoints to a new one. There, okay, there we are. All right. Yay. This says Medina's Spirit Horoscope. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
All right. The real chart for Medina Spirit is April 5th, 2018. I did a noon chart for him, and he was born near enough to Ocala, Florida, right, Marianne, that he wasn't born in another area, that this would be accurate. He probably wasn't born right downtown in the hospital or anything, but this is close enough. Let's look at this chart because many of you love your animals and are animal psychics and have pets. If you're not and you do readings, people will come in about their pets anyway. If you can get an accurate birth date for a pet, and often you can do its chart. If you can't, find the day they adopted the pet and do that event chart. But let's take a look at this superstar because this is really a big deal. There were people that lost millions and millions of dollars by not seeing Medina's spirit, and the good sheikh that bought him recognized his talent and ability from the video that I have that Marianne sent. And any of you would like it, you can have it. Medina's spirit is an Aries, good for sport. And he seems to be a very intelligent horse. He has Mercury conjunct the sun. He just seems extremely bright watching him. And he has Mercury retrograde, which means he started off life on a winding path. He was sold for just $1,000, then $35,000, and now his worth is not even, I don't think, could be estimated at this point because he's, going to maybe go on to be a Triple Crown winner. Here's his moon. His moon is 16 degrees Sagittarius about, and his sun, Mercury, and widely his Uranus conjunction are trine the moon. Everybody, the darling of the gods aspect is the moon sun trine. It comes around a couple of times a month. And if it is an event, if you're trying to find a time to open a business, or if you are wanting to leave on a trip, whatever you want to do, the moon sun trine, watch for that. This horse has it. It didn't in the wrong chart. So I was puzzling. And then this moved the moon to the right place. So we do know this is Medina's right birthday now. Anyone that has that, anyone who had really looked at this chart might have seen that. I don't know, maybe even the sheikh. Maybe he used astrology because the birthplace of astrology is the Middle East. The fixed stars all have Arabic names. So I don't know, he might have. This is the Uranus, the planet of shocks and upsets. The orb is a little wide, but look at Mercury, the sun, and Uranus are trine the moon. And so you could see this as a superstar right there. The horse has a lot of endurance and came from kind of earthy beginnings. He has Mars conjunct Saturn. He works very hard. You know, everyone says what a lot of heart he has, and the horse put his whole heart into this. Anyone with a prominent Mars and Saturn, and they're in Capricorn. Capricorn is the ruling sign of Saturn, so his Saturn is dignified. Mars happens to be exalted in Capricorn, so that's strong. And then there's Pluto, which is the higher octave of Mars, and that stellium is very strong, and that is widely trine Venus in Taurus. Venus is money, success, good things. Jupiter in Scorpio is retrograde. The horse might be the reincarnation of man of war. You know, one of the other great horses, maybe the Trojan horse wouldn't be a good example, but Jupiter retrograde in Scorpio is things maybe from other lifetimes, and that is very strong for survival and hanging in there. So, and that is sextile Pluto. So hopefully the horse won't suffer a lot running in the other races. Marianne said that doing the Triple Crown takes so much out of a horse. And, you know, that to me is very compassionate because they give a darn about the horse then. That's encouraging. But this one I don't think would suffer from an injury, you know, that would be threatening. Whether he's going to win or not, well, let's take a look at the Kentucky Derby chart. And then you can look at the charts for the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes, which are coming up. This chart is done for Louisville. If you do the event charts for the other horse races, you can find out post time, but you have to do them for New York and then for Maryland, you know, because the horse, you have to get the latitude and longitude right. 6:57 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Post time was supposed to be 7:01, but that's close enough. It takes 4 minutes to significantly change it. But this is the actual chart with the ascendant. Let's take a look at this. It has Libra rising, which is very social. There's a lot of love, a lot of beauty around this race. The ruler of the chart is Venus. It's over here in Taurus. And look at Uranus conjunct the sun. That is a big surprise. Whenever you see Uranus in a sports event prominent, an upset is likely. And then there's a Mercury-Venus conjunction. Mercury is words. Venus is social, and there were a lot of interviews, you know, the one with Bob Baffert talking about everything that went into the background here, an interview that he did. That's all of this in material that represented the shock. Here's the moon in Capricorn. That's a lot of money involved, and it is applying to trine. There was a moon-sun trine with this chart. The moon in Capricorn, trining all this Taurus. So the race went on without anyone getting injured because this indicates no one was really hurt by it. And John Velasquez, the jockey, just adorable, smiling and sort of mugging for the camera, about as big as an elf, I think 4 feet high. They're all tiny. But at any rate, this kind of shows here. The end of the matter. Whenever you're doing an event chart, the fourth house shows how it will end. Horses are ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is here in the fourth. It's on the line, but on the line, but it's still in the fourth. It's applying to the fifth. The fifth is gambling, horse racing. Neptune is illusion and confusion, a lot of loss. Wherever Neptune falls in a chart, there's deception and loss. We all have it somewhere. The fifth house, all those gamblers lost. I don't think anyone put enough money on Medina's spirit, to make a lot. Maybe they did. Pluto and Saturn in the fourth. A lot of people really lost a lot. Those are two malefics there and some bad blood. So that's, I think, just all kind of interesting. Before the horse event and the excitement of Bill and Melinda Gates getting a divorce, that was announced today. Their charts are online, and if anyone wants to do some research, Gates is a Scorpio, and Lee told me that Melinda Gates is a Leo, and there's all this fixed stuff in Scorpio. So just knowing the sun signs, you can sort of see that she probably got fed up with him, even being a 12 times over billionaire. Don't want to think about it, but let's instead look at Alex Trebek. This is the chart I had originally planned before getting all involved mentally with rubbing elbows just a couple hours up the road from royalty. Royalty's a step above celebrity, everybody, and we've all been touched by the royal family of Saudi Arabia and horse racing royalty today. So, at any rate, before getting all involved with that, I had picked this chart for you to look at. Alex Trebek of Jeopardy. Everybody likes him or knows who he is, at least, I hope. He was born July 22nd, 1940, 11:15 a.m. Eastern War Time. During World War II, there was daylight savings time around the clock in a few places. For heaven's sakes, be aware of that if you're calculating your own charts. He was born in Sudbury, Canada. So we have an accurate chart here for him. And let's take a look at him. He was just like a human encyclopedia. His rising sign is Virgo, and he was always very precise, very correct and verbal with Neptune rising. His Neptune is 23. That's within 5 degrees of the ascendant. So there's a lot of mystery. And I don't know if he would have agreed with this, but maybe psychic intuition and picking out the questions and the candidates, that apply to be on the show. His moon was in Pisces. The orb is a little wide, but there's another sun-moon trine. Pisces, the water signs are trine, and he has Chiron, the planet of learning and healing, teacher of Achilles, retrograde Mercury. He might have brought this in from other lifetimes. Both he and Medina's spirit were born with retrograde Mercury. So if you're doing the chart of a relative, a lot of people who do the horoscopes of their children and grandchildren call me up hysterical saying, Mercury retrograde, there's no hope. Well, there is. There's just a very unusual path usually. Alex Trebek's 10th house is loaded. He always wanted to be on stage, on the air. And of course, was a worldwide celebrity. And they still mention him every night on Jeopardy. I have fantasies about taking the test to see if I can get on Jeopardy, but I'm afraid they might turn me down. My ego couldn't deal with it. Nor couldn't Leo Moon here. But at any rate, I like to watch it. And the 10th house showed him out there in the spotlight his whole life. Whenever you see a strong 10th house, everybody, that person is likely to be self-employed, celebrity, very successful. The 10th house sun used to be recorded in royal horoscopes long ago for everybody who was in line to be a senior royal. And that's because that was the sign of the king or queen or ruler. And we can still see that today in people that have a strong 10th house. Anything in the 10th house will lead to prominence, but especially a 10th house sun. And there it is. Alex had Venus right on his midheaven. This is called the high leg, Hyleg, from a Latin word meaning high up there. And the planet that's closest to the midheaven shows someone's highest destiny and the sign on the midheaven. When people come to me for a reading, a lot of times they want to know how they can be successful, how they can get a decent career that they can stand. Well, the sign on the midheaven and any planet near there tells you he has Gemini there. What did he do? Words, talking, and did it in an artistic and social way. Venus is within 1 degree of the midheaven. So he was very likable. All the people who worked with him just seemed to really love him, which is something in the television industry, because there's a lot of enmity in that. So, you know, it's just kind of interesting to look at that, that chart. Okay, let's see. This was your lesson for this week, everybody. It was on the website, but let's kind of go over the aspects a bit. Aspects are critical in being an accurate astrologer. Those are the angular distances dynamically at work in the birth chart. Now, with the computer programs, they're calculated out for you. You don't have to memorize all the angles, except their orbs are a little too small. So you want to at least recognize them. The computer programs use very tiny orbs, meaning just a small distance from the variable. And this is kind of an artistic thing, but I like to use wider orbs. I feel they're more subtle when they're not quite as exact. But you do want to look at and be familiar with the Ptolemaic aspects of the first 5. Those are the ones that Claudius Ptolemy, the great classical astrologer, developed. The conjunction, opposition, sextile, square, and the trine. The quincunx is one of the minor aspects. It's 1 degree away from an opposition, and it's becoming more prominent. The more subtle aspects are the vigintile, the semisextile, the quintile, biquintile, and sesquiquadrant. Don't worry about those now. Just know that there exists a whole family of more subtle aspects that eventually you want to be aware of, you know, if you're going further in astrology. But if you can do these 5 and then the quincunx, you can really do a very good reading. Conjunction, we've been talking about with the charts looked at today. 2 planets within 10 degrees of each other, close together, conjoining. This is powerful, and it's favorable or not, depending on if it's a good conjunction. For example, the most depressing, difficult aspect, I don't think anyone here has it, but I haven't looked at everyone's chart, is the Moon-Saturn conjunction. People who have that struggle with chronic depression and just have a really hard time enjoying life unless there are influences to the contrary. So in that case, the conjunction isn't good. A Sun-Venus conjunction, on the other hand, is very positive, and so is the Sun conjunct Jupiter. Jupiter and Venus are the benefics. Sun-Venus is a good-looking artistic person. Sun-Jupiter conjunction is someone who has the kind of personality lesser mortals pray for. That's a direct quote from Grant Louis, a very famous astrologer from the 1940s. The opposition. This one is easy to see. 2 planets are right across from each other. Oh, there's Deborah. I'm going to let her in there. I just saw her sign there. Hi, Deborah. The opposition is 2 planets are 180 degrees apart. They're exactly across from each other. And this is unfavorable. It's blockages from the environment and other people. You can use an orb of 10 for the opposition. And when you see that, the person might have a bad obligation with a family member, might have been born in negative circumstances, but the world tosses up blockages. This is problems from external sources. Now, don't feel bad if you find bad aspects in your own chart, because those are the influences that get us going. Elvis Presley had a grand cross in his chart. He had a grand cross, which meant he had oppositions and squares, and he did great. He had health problems, a rough early life, but he rose above it. So, it's sometimes that's typical of Mercury on negative stars tonight. The dogs aren't even happy. Okay, sextile is two planets are 60 degrees or two signs apart. This is pleasant, harmonious combining of energies. It's half of a trine, and this is an overall pleasant, positive aspect. Sextiles are good. Planets of harmonious elements like air feeds fire, water feeds earth. Every other sign, you'll have water and earth. So that's how you can spot a sextile. Square, the planets are of the same quality. Aries squares Cancer, Cancer squares Libra, Capricorn squares Aries. As an example, I'm moving my little pointer here. And the squares are very rough because you're your own inner enemy. With the opposition, the problems that come running at you come from the outer world. With the square, you have to really overcome inner negativity and not be creating problems for yourself. It's turbulent, stressful, but it does show ambition. Someone, for example, who has the Sun square Saturn is very driven, very ambitious. The trine we've been talking about, that's when the two planets are in the same element, fire, earth, air, and water. We talked about that last week, but I have those to go over in a minute. They're positive, like our horse tonight. Medina's spirit is an Aries with a Sagittarius moon. That's two fire signs, right? And Alex Trebek, a Cancer with a Pisces moon. So that is a trine, very positive, fortunate influence. A grand trine is if all of three elements, if there are placements in all the water, all the fire, the earth, that person has a grand trine. And do you know what? The ancient astrologers thought that was very evil because it made someone too lazy and too much of a tendency to drift. But the more recent books say it's very good. So then all good is evil and all evil is good. So there. The quincunx is a very awkward aspect. The planets are 5 signs, 150 degrees apart. An example would be the sun in Cancer and the moon in Sagittarius. Another example would be Mercury in Leo and Mars in Pisces. So the quincunx is awkward. Some people say it's karmic. There's a lack of balance, and the person is ruled by fate. There is a tendency that past life karma, spiritual factors come in, and spiritual astrology is another whole thing. There is a very famous aspect called a Yud, Y-O-D. Anyone who speaks Hebrew, this is a little Irish girl from Chicago trying to speak Hebrew, go ahead and say, Pamela, did I say Yud or Yad?
Yud.
Yud, okay.
Yud.
That's the right name, because there's always someone that I can read their aura that I messed up with. I try. A Yud is when two planets are sextile and they're both quincunx a third. It's called the hand or eye or finger of God aspect. If you ever see that, that's something, and it can be, say someone who has a lot of promise and then they have a sudden accident and become a quadriplegic. That's an extreme aspect. Let me give you an example. Suppose we have Venus in Taurus, sextile Mars in Cancer, okay? And then both of them are quincunx, the planet Jupiter in Sagittarius. And so they would both, but they're both sextile, and that makes a finger of God or eye of God. It's called both, or it's called a yud. But if you see that, pay special attention, because you're dealing with a very unusual chart that might or might not be any good. You might have noticed I was careful to give my examples because some planets can't be more than a certain amount apart. For example, Mercury and Venus. Venus can't be more than 48 degrees from the sun, and Mercury can't be more than 28 degrees from the sun. Someone says they are a Taurus and they have Mercury in Aquarius, you know, they don't know their moon nodes from a hole in the ground, because Mercury can't be that far from the sun. And if someone says they are a Libra but have Venus in Aquarius, they also don't know their moon nodes from a hole in the ground, because those two placements can only be those small distances apart. Okay, so you have an idea of the aspects. Learn the first 5 at least, and you can be a good astrologer. You can be an even better astrologer if you learn the more subtle ones, but that takes time. The qualities mark the start of each season. Cancer, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, they're the present. We did this before. This is a review. The fixed signs are steadfast, the season at its peak. There's a lot of fixed in the heavens right now. And then the moon moved into Aquarius today, and things have just been very fixed in the world, with Mercury being also in late Taurus. You can look at these with the charts of the day and figure things out. Mutables herald a change to come. The well-balanced chart has something in each of these, but if there's a lack of balance, that just shows what the soul chose to come into. This is going back to last week, the fire, earth, and air and water signs. You want to learn those categories. And fire is dynamic, earth is solid and grounding, air is intellectual, water is emotional. But you want to be aware of the rulers and the decanates of each sign in order to be really accurate. Let me kind of go through that with the fire signs. Who can tell me what planet rules Aries?
Mars.
Mars. Who can tell me what rules Leo?
The sun.
Who can tell me what rules Sagittarius?
Jupiter.
Excellent. Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Rhiannon. All right. Overall, Aries placements are disposited or ruled by Mars. The first 10 degrees of Aries are double Mars, 0 to 9. The next one, 10 to 19, are going to be ruled by Mars and Leo, Mars and the sun. And the last 10 degrees will be ruled by Mars and Jupiter. Does everyone see how I did that? What you do is you look at the rulers of each element, and then the first 10 degrees are double by the sun ruler, and then the next 10 degrees are ruled by the next in line and the next. Let's go with Leo. The first 10 degrees of Leo are ruled by Sun, Sun. The next 10 degrees are Sun, Jupiter ruled. The final decanate is Sun, Mars. See that? That's very important for adding detail and accuracy and depth to your readings. You'll also learn more about individual degrees and other things like Sabian symbols eventually, but this will help you a lot. Let's do another one. Let's go to Earth. Taurus is ruled by Venus. The first 10 degrees are Venus, Venus. The next 10 degrees are the Virgo decanate. That's Virgo, that's Taurus. I'm sorry, that's Venus, Mercury, Venus, Mercury. The last 10 degrees of Taurus are going to be Venus, Saturn, because that's the Capricorn decanate. Okay, let's move up to Capricorn. Capricorn, the first decanate is Saturn, Saturn. The second decanate is the Taurus decanate, and that's going to be Saturn, Venus, see? And the final decanate will be Saturn, Mercury. Okay, Everybody understands how to figure out the decanates within the elements. Well, let's go down to water and do one more. Cancer is moon. Moon rulership for the first 10 degrees of Cancer. The second decanate is going to be the moon Pluto ruler, because you have the moon with Scorpio. And then the third decanate will be the moon and Neptune. Okay, if you go with Pisces, the first decanate of Pisces will be Neptune. The second decanate is going to be Neptune moon. And the last decanate of Pisces will be Neptune Pluto, the Scorpio decanate. Just kind of look at that little chart. It's up on the website, and that is going to be very helpful to you. Well, that's the full moon. Okay, we talked about the full moon last week. This week we're at the last quarter today, but the events that were promised by the full moon are now unfolding in the world. And when you want to do predictions, because that's a good way to get your articles in magazines and things like that. I've done predictions for years. What you want to do is, well, you want to look at a lot of different things, the ingress chart for the moment of each season. But if you look at the full moon chart, you can do predictions for the next 2 weeks. This is what's going on in the world now. And then it'll culminate with the next new moon, which is on, I better check, the 11th of May. We have a new moon on the 11th of May in Taurus, but let's see what's going on. Well, the big news in the world is sports, and the 5th house is sports and games. That's the big horse race, the Derby and the upset, but it's also, there's an awful lot going on with other sports, soccer and sports in general. I don't follow other sports that much because I only like horseback riding and skiing. You know, otherwise the others can just go to the devil. But at any rate, there is, there's a lot of money, and there's a lot with sports going on there. The moon is in Scorpio right now. It's fixed moon, or it was the full moon was in Scorpio. It's moved ahead into Aquarius, but the Scorpio moon is sneaky things. And the governor of Florida was very, very sneaky. Nothing political. We're not mentioning any parties. The mayors are nonpartisan races, so nothing about politics here, but there's a lot of sneakiness going on. The Scorpio moon is also high crime, and the chief of police, Roland Cologne, what's his name? Anyway, I should know, he was just on the air. The chief of police in Orlando talked about how violent this last weekend was. There was a lot of violence in the world. I know not everyone lives in Orlando, but you can make this germane to your own location. I did the chart for Orlando, but you can set it up, for Boston or wherever you might be lucky enough to live out of here. So talking about Barbara, she's living in Boston. The moon in Scorpio, though, stays the same for the time zones and for the quarter moon. And you'll see the sun is at 7, and the Scorpio moon at 7 is in the double Pluto decanate of Scorpio. So there's just been tremendous amounts of crime and sneaky things, and a lot of information about what might be going on in the world, different things happening. Countries have horoscopes, and the country of India is in the news a lot. There's tremendous tragedy there with the COVID virus just killing so many people. And India is ruled by the sign of Capricorn and the planet Saturn. Well, we can see Saturn in Aquarius here, involved in a square to the Taurus placements and a square to the moon. There's a fixed T-square right there. And it is another pattern I want to mention to you. I mentioned the grand crosses. That's when you have planets, say, in all the cardinal, fixed, or mutable signs all square each other. A very famous esoteric writer, her name was Alice Bailey, wrote spiritual things about the Grand Cross. Also, another longtime astrology writer from the last century, Alan Leo, wrote a lot about those special influences. But this one is a fixed T-square. That means the last opening is Leo. It's open. There isn't anything there. This is from the full moon. But the moon was square Saturn and was square the Taurus stellium, which is a very powerful grouping of planets. It's moving out now. Mercury and Venus are moving ahead, and the sun will be moving out of Taurus, but it's really powerful. That stellium is the name for a grouping, is involved in a T-square, and all the energy, the negative energy of the opposition and the square, is directed toward the empty leg. We have an interception here, so you'll have to visualize the symbol for Leo between Cancer and Virgo. The interceptions are when a sign is squeezed out and doesn't have a whole house. It has to do with latitude and longitude, and I have a free article about it on the website. But all of the energy is directed toward the sign of Leo. What's been going on with the royal family, the British royal family? A lot of trouble, a lot of stuff happening. The Leo influence represents a lot of things, also children. And there's been a lot about the education of children and the hard times some of them are having. And celebrities would be Leo too. But the fixed T-square shows a lot of turmoil with that, those subjects since we had the last full moon. So you can keep this and look at it. I think I have it up on the website, or copy it down if you want to have it. If you scroll back on my Facebook posts, it's posted. The full moon chart is there. But if you want to have it to look at, you can try your own predictions. Everything here should be fulfilled by the 11th of May. Mars is in Cancer, and there's been a lot of stress and tension around real estate, at least in this area. And so you can sort of get an idea of things going on. Sagittarius rising here, a lot of international things. Sagittarius rules 2 houses here, and Gemini rules 2 houses because of the interception. And the Sagittarius ascendant shows the international quality of what's going on and interest in other countries. That figures in with this this chart. The cusps will vary a little according to where you're born. This is set up for where you're living, well, where you're born too, but it also kind of gives you an idea there. Okay, let's go back to look at everybody. Hi, everyone. I hope I didn't put you to sleep. I tried not to. Does anyone have any questions? We have a few minutes left, and I'm not in a hurry tonight. I'll miss all of you, and I'll try to let you know. I'll put it up on Facebook or send around messages, and it'll be under events on the website for like future things if I want to do another seance. But I don't want to kind of jinx it by scheduling it tonight. Just Mercury right on the evil degrees of Pleiades just has really played havoc with all things all day long, mostly involved with the horse and, all the strange data there, but other things too. But, we'll have another one. How many of you would be interested in another online seance night? Anybody? If there's enough, okay, I'll think about it. And it might not be on the full moon. I haven't decided that either. Okay, good. I appreciate everyone being interested. That's really gratifying there. Loose ends of questions. Does anyone have special questions of anything about the class or astrology at all that I can help you with? I will try.
How much do you use the fixed stars?
Pardon? The
About the fixed stars.
The fixed stars, I have an article about a new one in each witch's almanac. And I know that you read the almanac. The
Yeah.
fixed stars, there's a reference you're going to have to get. This is called, you can see how much I've used this. This is the second copy. I wore one up. This is called The Fixed Stars in Constellational Astrology, and it's by Vivian E. Robeson. Vivian's a man, R-O-B-S-O-N. It came out almost 100 years ago. There are other fixed stars references, but they are specific degrees of the zodiac that align with very distant stars, and they color the degree. They are critical in many, many charts. And the fixed stars is kind of a misnomer. They do move very slowly, barely a degree over 72 years. So you want to look at the year. They're on the internet too. There's a site called Fixed Star King, and just put in fixed stars and see if you have any in your own birth chart active. Use a very small orb, no more than 3 degrees. And some of them are very good and some are not. Every year when I do the Witch's Almanac, my editor here, Andrew Friedrich, says, pick out a cheerful fixed star, and it's hard to do that because a lot of them aren't. But ever since he became editor, well over 10 years ago now, every year he's asked me to write a fixed star article. And this one is the one that's out now. The fixed star we're doing this year is Betelgeuse. And I have on my YouTube channel little films about most of the fixed stars. But Betelgeuse is very intriguing. And then you have to look at the history of the fixed star and then which planet it's on. For example, with Betelgeuse, let me just quote from this. For example, with Betelgeuse, if you had the sun conjunct that degree, it would be totally different than having the moon there. Okay, let's see. I did Dion Fortune this year, who's a really interesting celebrity chart. And the book keeps wanting to open up to that, but I know I have Betelgeuse in here. How many of you remember the movie with Betelgeuse as a character? Well, the fixed star isn't as amusing or clever, but I surely got a kick out of that when that came out. I thought that was really great. And I try to pick something that's relevant to the eclipses and major transits of the year. Let's see, it's on page 86, or it should be. There it is, Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse is having a moment, said one stargazer during October of 2019. Betelgeuse blew up. That's the painting I have put on it. Not that I was able to fly that high on the broom, but how I imagine the fixed star of Betelgeuse looked when it was blowing up. It's turning into a supernova. And the last supernova event was February 23rd to 24th in 1987. And before that, it was Kepler's calculations in 1604. So there aren't a lot of the stars that blow up and turn into supernovas. And so you really want to kind of look at that. It's 640 light years away, over 1 trillion miles. Does it influence us? The fixed stars are so far away. Many people don't bother with them, but I think that they're very significant and very important. If your sun conjoins Betelgeuse, you might have military distinction, mystical abilities, but have a tendency to be one of those people who's hot all the time, who has fevers all the time. And Betelgeuse right now is located at 28 degrees Gemini, 53 minutes. I had to recalculate it because it was moving away from where the books had it. But look at 28 degrees Gemini, 53 minutes in your own chart. Does anyone have the ascendant or sun or moon there by any chance? If you do, then you're being affected by Betelgeuse. Jeannie, I think it's your moon, isn't it? Am I right? Okay, Jeannie, this says you attract honor, wealth, you have turbulent emotions and an active mind. What do you think? Is that right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds just like her, So it's just interesting. If you're looking at a chart and there's something missing, you don't quite get the person, look to see if there's a fixed star that's significant, and it just, but you want to learn all this other stuff first. But the stars often figure in political events and major upheavals and things. So, it's something good to be aware of. And you can find a lot of information on the tapes that I have, because I have most of the major ones and how they affect everything recorded. Now, there are many minor and subtle ones. Just if you're out at sea or away from somewhere, if you're lucky enough not to live right in the city and can look up like Michelle and I do, we live right just down the street from each other. You're hard put to see much besides the full moon. Most nights hard to even see Mars or Saturn. But if you're out in the country, or if you're out at sea, if you're brave enough to go out on a boat, I don't know if I would be now, the cruise ships are so strange, but you can look up and see so many stars, so many more than we can see or be aware of, and they all have energy that they're radiating out at us, by the way. And some of them have been cataloged. Some new ones are being cataloged, but that's another kind of whole area to look at. So, well, everybody, I love all of you and really appreciate you staying here for the class. Enjoyed working with you. I'm here if you, there's a kitty. Oh, which kitty is that?
Clovis. It's
Oh, that's
Clovis.
Clovis. He's so adorable. He doesn't want to look at the screen either. I think it's
Well,
eyes.
very old and he's
Aw.
very frail right now.
Oh, he enjoys life. He's having a good
Yeah.
life. I think he's living. Oh, and there's Albus down there. Hi, Albus. He's waving to us. I don't know why Templeton's so antisocial. Oh, thank you, Mary Ann, for your kind words. Well, I really enjoyed all of you, and we can think of maybe an advanced astrology class. I want everyone, though, to feel really comfortable with everything we've done so far. And think of whether you'd like a spiritual astrology class or something with the horoscopes of countries and cities. That's called mundane astrology, or the one thing that, I might be doing something with George with the astrology of health, with someone in the health field, which is popular but scares the socks off me because I don't go to doctors or know anything about health. But, as long as everyone knows that, that's all right then, because they know that where I'm coming from. But maybe health, or think of what you might like or be interested in, crime or accidents, all kinds of topics you can look at and do a class on once you know all these basics. So, okay, well, beginning
what's your favorite astrological website if you were just going to tool around and try to teach yourself something?
Well, gosh, I'm going to go to mine and be egotistical. Sky Maiden Musings. That's a terrible answer, Christy. But there's so much politics in the astrology world. If I name one, it'll get out. So, just.
I can't remember anything. So.
Okay. NFAA, the North Florida Astrological Association, and the Cosmic Church of Truth. There's a wonderful astrologer there, Mary Hop Cox. She's just terrific, and she puts up these wonderful articles from all over, and she goes to many astrology sites and sort of does things. You can friend her on Facebook or friend the NFAA, North Florida Astrological Association, and then they have a co-site, the Cosmic Church of Truth. There's some wonderful astrologers that contribute to that. And they also have on the fourth Tuesday of every month a free Zoom where they did the new president of the association just did a wonderful one last Tuesday about the moon nodes. just very good. And you can get a free astrology class by tuning in. You can join the association. It's only like $25 a month, but for right now, I think if you just tune in on their Facebook page or their Zoom link, because it's all free, you can see. They also had a speaker about Sabian symbols, Linda Hill from Australia, being in. And back in the days before COVID, they'd have me up about twice a year to do a program, and other speakers, astrologers from around the country. So the North Florida Astrological Association, I'm going to answer with that, Christy, and
Okay,
just tell
thank you.
everyone to go to that. And for free charts, I like Astrolabe, but there are others. There's Astro Dentist and others where if you don't want to get a lot of expensive programs and things, you can get at least the natal charts. Now, if you want to do progressions or ingresses, that's when the new season starts. You'll have to either spring for all the books or for one of the programs. And if you're good at arithmetic, get the ephemeris and tables of houses and calculate your own. It's about third grade level arithmetic. It's not hard. It's just getting the steps right. If you don't want to bother with that, then spring for one of the programs. And it's about the same price as the books, maybe a little more, but not much. Okay, well, I don't like long goodbyes. Come and see me in Casadega if you can, and we'll do something online in a while.